Good evening, and welcome to another edition of Camera Music. I'm here, thrilled to be here actually, with Julia Bruskin and Aaron Wunsch, who are our artists tonight. And before the performance, we were able to get together with them. They're there in their apartment, and I'm here in our studio in Metro Detroit. And we're going to record a little bit of a conversation for you to enjoy during this half an hour of doors open time. So, hi, Julie and Aaron. How are you?
We're doing
Hey,
great.
Steve. Great to be with you.
Yeah, very
Well, it's
excited for this. Thank
fantastic.
you so much.
Uh, and we'll be completely clear about when we're recording this. It's a couple of days before the performance, and you've just put your kids to bed.
That's true. They're in the next room. If they make a surprise appearance, all the better.
Yeah, right. Well, well, we'll look forward to that. Um, uh, so you live in New York City, and Julia, you're a member of the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra, which I guess is not playing concerts right now. And then Aaron, you're on the faculty at the Juilliard School. Uh, and the two of you are also the co-artistic directors of the Skaneateles Festival, which is a co-presenting partner for this concert tonight. So, how has this coronavirus time been for you?
Well, I mean, as for everyone, it's been a real reset of many of the things that one always assumed about your life. It's had some positive things, but many challenges as well. I think I'm very grateful that we've had time as a family and time to look inward and practice again every night instead of playing an opera most nights. But then again, I can't say how much I miss performing with my trio, with the opera, with Aaron, performing for people, and just the way that this whole situation has separated people from each other has been really challenging for us, for our kids, for everyone. I think that's that feeling of being isolated from our community, musical and otherwise, has been really difficult. So
To try to look at a positive side of it, I find it hard to express how meaningful music has been during this time. Just to even sit at the piano and play a Schubert impromptu, which is the thing that's really been keeping me going. It speaks to you in a way that it doesn't necessarily always do in normal times when you take what music is more for granted. At least I feel I did. So in that sense, there has been a kind of renewal of musical values and the way that music can comfort us and give us hope. It feels very real right now.
Yeah.
And certainly I find that coming from that experience of separation, when we do first get to see my parents for the first time in months, see a friend, or play music for even one person, it has this heightened and very moving quality to it, because we've had this deprivation for so long. So I think that has made us appreciate and fall in love again with something that perhaps we had been taking for granted before.
Yeah. Well, and I guess you're smack in the middle of New York City, which is one of the fastest moving places on the planet, and to be making music in that kind of environment must be just incredibly hectic. And then to suddenly have enforced upon you this moment where kind of reflection is the natural thing to do. Yeah.
Yes. With two young kids around, there hasn't been quite as much reflection as perhaps in some other homes. But
my kids are a little older.
Two steps behind my kids.
Yeah.
But no, it is certainly true that with I think both of us are the kind of people who are always running around, always busy, fitting 17 things into a day when there probably should have only been 13. And I think it has been really wonderful to not be doing 7 things at once all the time, and to focus more truly and sort of serenely on the thing at hand, and to try to move forward with that as we can. And I think it has felt quite different generally over the last few months to be doing things in a more single-minded way, which is good.
Yeah. Well, and the kind of family time that professional musicians are enjoying with their kids or whatever. It's a rare, wonderful pleasure. The last concert we had was with Anthony McGill, and he's got a very small child at home, and this wonderful time he's had with I guess it's his son. To be able to spend that kind of incredible quality time. Mine are in college and they're home too. And
Yeah.
it's what a really interesting time to be around.
Mhm.
um,
That's the truth.
and I know both of you are involved with institutions that are finding their ways to pivot, um, um, to different kinds of an approach. And of course, we can all go to the website and look at the Metropolitan Opera and the Juilliard School, and so we won't bother spending any time on them tonight. However, you are both artistic directors at the Skaneateles Festival, um, and that's a really wonderful festival. I guess what I would ask you to do is describe what that festival is like normally, and then maybe talk a little bit about how you're pivoting this summer in maintaining the relationships with your listeners and with your donors, and just how that's all working.
Well, I think like everyone else, we're feeling our way forward little by little. But in normal times, the festival is so wonderful because people look forward to it all year. It's not like there are other music series all year long. They have this jewel of music, which comes once a year, and they anticipate it. And when it comes, there's just this sense of joy in the community. Of course, people come from all over the area and from Syracuse and other places, but there's just this palpable sense of joy when people get together at that first concert of the year, and we're all back together again. And we're not going to have that in the same form this year. So we really wanted to look at the mission of the festival, what its purpose is, and think about how can we fulfill that despite these considerable challenges. What kind of music could reach out to people and offer something meaningful, and how can we get it to them? And that's exactly, I suppose, some version of that is what you're doing as well, Steve.
Our usual season would be the month of August. We usually have 3 concerts a week, Thursday, Friday at a beautiful church, and then Saturday outdoors at a beautiful pavilion at a vineyard. But we're very, very blessed this year to have been invited to partner with WCNY, which is our local PBS NPR station.
Okay.
And they'll be welcoming us into their studios to do live performance there with musicians from the area. We're not bringing people in from outside that area, but we're very lucky to have some really terrific players, the Ying Quartet, Andy Russo, and
Right.
Ariana Kim, and some others joining us, as well as one concert that will be sent in camera music style from the home of Mark and Maggie O'Connor.
Nice.
So I think it'll be
Nice.
a really
That'll be fun.
yeah. So it should be a really fun group of musicians and some really great music. And we're very grateful to WCNY for making that possible and making it possible for us to, although we can't be together in person, to reach actually a broader and more perhaps diverse audience than we would just in Skaneateles. So.
Well, we're certainly going to tell our audience at the Chamber Music Society of Detroit about it. I don't know how many of them have been to Skaneateles. I don't actually remember if I've been to Skaneateles, although I've driven past the exit on the throughway. My parents have a home in the Adirondacks, and I know it's kind of on the way. But it's in the Finger Lakes, and it's one of the most beautiful areas of the country. I think people think of New York City as a crowded urban place, but the state is gorgeous. My goodness. And in many respects,
We'll have to get you to come sometime, Steve.
Yeah, well, although the hills are higher
You're
there,
welcome anytime.
it's very much like upstate Michigan. So yeah, I might take you up on it. So when you approach your role as artistic director, um, what are the kinds of things? What are the kinds of things you think about in making choices about people to invite and repertoire to schedule and that sort of thing? What, you know, lift the veil a little bit and talk a little bit about your kind of your curatorial creative process.
Well, it's really fun, partially because it's one of the projects that we really get to work on together, which means that we get to spend time together, which is also really fun. We like that, and our kids are often have been heard to say, "Oh no, are you talking about Skaneateles again?" But I think our guiding principle. Our guiding principle is, we start with music that we really love. We try to find some pieces that we know everybody loves, and then some that we really love that people may not have heard before. And then we think of performers who really inspire us, and who we'd love to play with, and see if we can convince them to come to Skaneateles. And often we can, because it's really a special place and a wonderful coming together of music and musicians and people who love music and musicians. I think the community supports their musicians, welcomes them into their homes, feeds them, and this will happen again one day, we pray.
Yeah.
But it's really a palpable feeling of support and love that the community offers to the musicians. And I think that really, it sort of brings out the best in people. I think when we get a great group of musicians up on stage playing something that we've been thinking about all year, and then, the audience and everything comes together, it's really a special thing.
For me, it also starts with the audience, who is going to be listening, and what can we do for the people who are listening. I agree that it starts with music that we feel really moved us and that brought us great joy. But I also try to imagine myself sitting there and, okay, what would I really like to hear because I know it? What is something that would really surprise me and engage me, which I've never heard before, if I were sitting in that audience? And how can I create a program that has texture, or a festival that we think about that has texture, that has layers, that has various goals, and has a variety of musical directions within the same festival, hits a various number of emotions on different emotional levels, from the very serious and sorrowful and deep to the joyful and effervescent, and how can we weave those emotions and musical vocabularies throughout the festival in a textured way. That's my long-winded answer.
And I think also our festival is kind of fun because we have these two different venues that are so different. We have the kind of an intimate church venue that has a really great acoustic, and then we have outdoors where everyone's on the lawn and having picnics. And I think different sorts of programming seem like they fit those two spaces, and that's really fun for us to get to have that variety of experience and of offerings.
Julia, I think the last time I saw you actually in person may have been, was it 2004, when the Beaux-Arts Trio had its last North American performance at Tanglewood. And it was in Ozawa Hall at Tanglewood, and of course they've got that back wall they can open up, and so there were some people on the lawn, and then there were some people indoors, and there really is just something so incredibly special about hearing great live chamber music. I know that one of my litmus tests, which for programming, which you guys pass in flying colors, is do you play with love? Because I think there's so many people out there that they can push all the buttons in all the right places, but there is such a deep level of communication that happens when music is played with love, and it just connects. So I'm thrilled that you guys get to do this project together. I mean, it must be just so unbelievably satisfying.
Whenever I've told people about this project and then we're doing it, they say, "Oh, how lucky you are that you can play together."
Yeah,
and it's true. Yeah. It's not something we take for granted.
Yeah. Well, I hope the folks in Skaneateles know how fortunate they are to have you in this role, because obviously you understand how fortunate you are to be in that role. But it's a great match. Fantastic. And I know you have a wonderful program in store for us, and um, uh, the Howland Cultural Center in Beacon is such an amazing structure. Uh, I don't know that everyone will be able to tell this when they see you perform there, but the ceiling is literally 4 stories above the floor. And I think the distance from the center of the floor to the top of the ceiling is probably farther than from any wall to any wall. It may be taller than it is wide. Now you've performed there before, Julia. Is your trio performed there?
No.
No. Okay. Well,
No,
I mean,
we've played in that area a lot, but not
yeah.
there. Yeah.
Well, it's a real treat. We had Anthony McGill there, and I think we've got one more concert in a couple of weeks with the Ataka Quartet scheduled there. But this is it's an amazing place, and I know you're going to love it. uh,
Yeah, I
um,
mean, there's some concert halls where you feel like you have to play to fill up the hall or play out to the people listening, and in this space, I think really it feels like you can listen in and really
yeah.
draw people into your sound, and that's really a special, very liberating feeling as a performer.
Well, and the room becomes an extension of your instrument. Uh,
Yeah.
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 Well, I think it's going to be a very special experience for everyone. I'm very familiar with half of your program. The Beethoven Sonata and the Debussy Sonata. I've played them both. The Variations I'm not so familiar with, and the Boulanger I've never heard of. Tell me a little bit about them.
Well, the Boulanger are wonderful pieces. I was talking earlier today, actually, with the organist, Paul Jacobs, and he said, hey, I know those pieces. Those were originally for organ.
Oh, how
and I had no
interesting.
idea.
Wow.
He said the second and the third are also exist in an organ version, which he's played. I haven't told Julie this yet. This was earlier today.
Interesting.
Which is fascinating. Imagine the sound of the organ for those pieces. But in any case, they're so full of nuance and beauty. They're not long-winded. If anything, they're very short, but they say a lot in a short amount of time. And one just wishes there was more music from her. She retired from composing when she was in her early 30s, and went on, of course, to become this famous teacher. Right? She had more famous composition students than any teacher who ever lived, I think. Mm-hmm. But she didn't have time anymore or inclination to compose. But we're lucky to have these pieces.
Right.
And the Beethoven Variations, I also really love very much. As an opera orchestra performer myself, Magic Flute is certainly very dear to my heart. It's the first opera that my kids ever saw, and the music in it really, it's one of those that never gets old. Every time I perform it, I really love it. The aria that this is based upon is it's sort of like a love duet, but not people who are in love with each other. One of them has just fallen in love with a picture, and the other really wants to fall in love. So it's sort of a funny duet, but it is an extremely beautiful melody. And I think, it's also interesting for me to see Mozart through Beethoven's eyes. I think, Mozart is thought of as the guy who could write a beautiful melody, without even thinking. And Beethoven, some people occasionally say, well, he doesn't do melody so much. He just has little, motives or little bits and pieces of things. So he takes this beautiful melody of Mozart's, and then what does he do with it? And I think that's kind of an interesting way to listen to this piece, because I think he does rather well with it, actually.
Yeah,
he does.
Yeah.
He has fun with it.
Yeah. Well, and of course the Debussy and the Beethoven are just great staples of the repertoire, and yet with those late cello sonatas of Beethoven, you begin to enter that world of late Beethoven that. Yes. It's almost Baroque in its formal structure. You know, these slow introductions to faster movements. It's just like a trio sonata. Um,
That's a great point, Steve. I never thought about that, but you're right. It's very much in the format of an old Baroque trio sonata.
yeah, um, and of course the Debussy Sonata. Uh, one of the six he was going to write for his mother. Oops. You know,
Yeah.
uh, uh,
Well, he got to the end of three, so I
yeah.
guess
Well, and I don't know if it's in the front of the cello sonata if they print his own uh, calligraphy title page for
they
the
do.
set. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know in the violin sonata they do the sonatas for six diverse instruments in honor of his mother who had died. And of course, he finished three of them, and then he died. Oops. but it's a wonderful piece, and no, you've selected a beautiful program for this, and you know, I think we're just going to delight in this thing, and um, I know that if anybody goes to the Skaneateles Festival website, they can find out information about the other concerts you're streaming in August, uh, and we'll throw that onto a slide at the end of the concert. So if you're wondering about that now as a listener, watch the whole concert and look at the slides at the end and jot down the email or jot down the web address, and you'll find it just fine. Uh, and so nothing will be happening in person there, I guess, this summer. It will all be virtual. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
still have this dream of doing performances one-on-one with members of our community, to find a place maybe outdoors or somewhere that feels safe to do
Yeah.
that. And so we're still figuring out if that's going to be possible, but that's
Yeah.
something we'd like to do, because I do think that there's something about being in person that's
Well, I saw
different that
pictures
we
of your
miss.
outdoor venue, and it does seem that one could do a certain amount of social distancing there. Um, at the Chamber Music Society of Detroit, we're actually contemplating going back into our main hall in November and doing two seatings, but alternating rows for the two seatings, and then having at least two seats between each party. But you know, we're all walking on Jello. You know, it's so hard to tell what we can do. Uh, but listen, thank you so much for doing this concert, and you know, we're really looking forward to it, and I think I know we're in for a treat. So thanks a bunch.
Thank you, Steve. It's such a privilege to be able to share this with all of you.
And it
We
was
really
truly a great pleasure to prepare this music and to play it for you tonight. So thank you so much.
We'll see you soon. Good evening, and welcome to another edition of CameraMusic, a production of the Chamber Music Society of Detroit. I'm Steve Wagaman, the president of the Chamber Music Society, and tonight we're thrilled to bring you a really wonderful concert by cellist Julia Bruskin and her husband, pianist Aaron Wunsch, from Beacon, New York, where once again the Howland Chamber Music Circle is serving as the host of our camera music concert. You know, this really is an incredible circle of good friends tonight, all of us. Julia goes way back with the Chamber Music Society of Detroit. As a member of the Claremont Trio, she was the winner of the first Kalkstein-Laredo Robinson International Trio Award, which was another production of the Chamber Music Society of Detroit for about a decade. And she and Aaron are co-artistic directors of the Skaneateles Festival in the Finger Lakes region of New York. And so it's those three organizations, the Chamber Music Society of Detroit, the Skaneateles Festival, and the Howland Chamber Music Circle, that are your co-presenters for tonight's concert. And here to say hello to us officially from the Howland Chamber Music Circle is Marjorie Groten, their board chair. Marjorie.
Hello, I'm Marjorie Groten, president of the Howland Chamber Music Circle, speaking to you from the historic Howland Cultural Center in Beacon, New York. Once again, we are pleased to collaborate with the Chamber Music Society of Detroit and other presenters to bring you live chamber music. Tonight, Julie Bruskin cello and Aaron Wunsch piano in a concert of Beethoven, Boulanger, and Debussy. It is a joy to welcome you to this beautiful resonant space where for 28 years we have presented concerts and where we look forward to presenting live concerts once again in the future.
Thank you, Marjorie. And thank you also to Carl Gutowski and Natalie Wren, two other board members of the Howland Chamber Music Circle, who are actually behind the cameras tonight in Beacon, New York. This wouldn't be happening without you, so thank you so much. And thank you to all of you. It's your support of these organizations and of camera music itself that makes these concerts possible. And at the end of the concert, there'll be a series of slides that will have website addresses for all of these organizations. And I encourage you to be as generous as you possibly can to help us make sure this stuff continues. And with that, let's turn it over to Julia and Aaron. Thank you. Enjoy.
Good evening. It is our great pleasure to be here to play a concert for you as part of the Detroit Chamber Music Society's Camera Music Series. My name is Julie Bruskin, my husband Aaron Wunsch, and we want to thank first of all the Chamber Music Society of Detroit, along with Steve Wagaman for his amazing vision in putting this series together so quickly. When we've been put into this situation where we can't play for a live audience, he's made it possible for us to play for you through the miracle of technology. We want to also thank the Howland Chamber Music Circle and all of their wonderful members who have come to help us record today. We have a great team here, and they're making this possible as well. So thank you to them, and also for this amazing space. It's very inspiring to be in a space like this to record. We want to treat this as much as possible like a performance. It's how we're thinking of it. I think as musicians, we're really yearning to be able to play again for people in real time together. There's nothing like sharing music, and we'll do that as much as we can through the screen tonight. We'll start tonight with a set of variations by Beethoven. Beethoven actually wrote two sets of variations on themes from Mozart's Magic Flute. This one is Bei Männern, welche, Liebe, fühlen, an aria which is actually a duet between Pamina, who has just fallen in love with the Prince Tamino after seeing his picture, and Papageno, a very silly bird catcher who hasn't fallen in love yet, but really wants to very soon. He's very eager. And the thing that they agree on in this aria is that love trumps all. Love is the most important thing, and that is certainly something that we can get behind as well. It's been amazing for us to be able to spend this time of distancing at home and all together, both as a family, but also musically, to have a partnership within our own home. that's a real gift that I know many musicians are missing. So, and we're glad to share that with you on this slightly stormy night. You may hear some thunder there, but inside we'll be smiling. So here's Beethoven's Variations, 7 Variations by Männern.
Next, we're happy to share with you 3 pieces by Nadia Boulanger, both because the pieces are not often heard and also because we find them exceptionally beautiful. One of the possible reasons why they're not often heard is because Nadia Boulanger herself preferred it that way. She believed that her younger sister, Lily Boulanger, was a more talented composer than she was. And when Lily died tragically in her mid-20s, Nadia, who was then in her mid-30s, stopped composing altogether and promoted her sister's music. Nadia Boulanger did, however, go on to become the world's most famous teacher of composers. She taught many, many diverse personalities, from Aaron Copland to Astor Piazzolla to even Philip Glass. And so that's a happy ending to the story of her career and her life. These pieces are unmistakably French. They're full of fluidity and nuance. But the last of the 3 has a distinctly Spanish flair. But that Spanish flair is very much with a French accent. We hope you enjoy these 3 pieces by Nadia Boulanger.
So next, we'd like to play for you the Sonata by Claude Debussy. Debussy wrote this towards the end of his life. I think we feel ourselves to be in a very turbulent and difficult time right now. This piece also came from a very turbulent and difficult time. It was written in 1915, just 1 year after Nadia Boulanger wrote the pieces we just played. But in 1915, when World War I had broken out, and also Debussy was suffering from cancer himself, and so felt quite ill. But in this moment, towards the end of his life, he actually still was very ambitious with the project that he set out upon. He decided to write 6 sonatas for different instruments, although in the end he was only able to compose 3 of those before his death. This cello sonata, a sonata for viola, flute, and harp, and a violin sonata with violin and piano. I think this piece is sort of, you can tell that it's written from a turbulent time. There's few of what you would think of as the themes and melodies of a sonata. It's a very stark and visceral kind of piece, very fantastic and imaginative. And Debussy uses many extended techniques for the cello to show the extremes of emotion, perhaps with different colors, playing both near the bridge and over the fingerboard with harmonics, and sometimes with no expression at all, he says. So it sort of stretches the sonority of cello and piano in a way that I think is very evocative. The first movement is a prelude, and then the second a serenade, but not your typical sung serenade in the Mozart aria sort of way. This one is very tongue-in-cheek and almost like a clown. Debussy almost subtitled this piece Pierrot Staring at the Moon, and I think the Commedia dell'arte aesthetic is very much present, especially in the second movement. And then the last movement is a finale, the most lighthearted movement of the 3, which all go together without real pause. In that movement, it seems like we finally release our cares a bit and get to have a good time. So this is Debussy's Sonata for cello and piano.
For this final work on the program, we're coming back to Beethoven on this 250th anniversary of his birth. This is his penultimate cello sonata in C major, which he wrote for a good friend of his, the cellist Joseph Linke. Linke played many of Beethoven's late string quartets and was a true friend to Beethoven. And certainly this piece is music of friendship. I think you'll see it's sunny, lively, and jovial. Linke was known for his ability when performing to change very quickly between characters, from passionate to humorous and everything in between. And this piece certainly does demand that kind of quick change of character. The last three of Beethoven's sonatas are all sunny works, even though they were written at fairly difficult times in Beethoven's life. And I always wonder whether perhaps his way of cheering himself up was writing cello sonatas. We certainly do hope that the music does that for all of you, and we look forward to the opportunity to be with you in person someday. We'd like to thank one more time Steve Wagaman and the Detroit Chamber Music Society, CameraMusic, also the Howland Chamber Music Circle for this beautiful space and the filming today, and also the Skaneateles Festival, which co-sponsored this event. Thank you all. This is Beethoven's Cello Sonata in C major.